it's your open source advocate, and I wanted to go over this OpenProject setup. So this was a request several weeks back. It's taken me a little time to get to it, but I did want to kind of go through this. It's really not too bad once you kind of figure out the steps to go through. So that's what took me a little bit, but we'll kind of go through it. So this is the OpenProject page. When you go here, you can basically go to the pricing page, which brings you here, and then there's the free site. But keep in mind, if you're an IT professional, somebody who supports an organization or a group, and you're like, I don't want to have to run something else and keep up with it and manage it myself, OpenProject has a cloud and an on-premise offering. You can see the pricing here. So if you're interested in that, going and doing these things helps keep the community versions out there and available for everybody else that wants to run it on a more of a personal level. But it is here if you need help getting things set up and going, so just be aware of that. So if you click on the free link, that brings you here where you can kind of choose. So they have a deb and an RPM, and you can choose to use those. So the deb is, of course, for Ubuntu and Debian-based systems. RPM is for Red Hat, CentOS, Fedora, those kind of systems. If you want something for a different Linux version than that, you'll probably have to either do source or use the Docker or some of these other options that you see. We're going to do Docker today. I love Docker. It makes things a lot easier, and just my opinion, but I really like it. But if you're running like just a dedicated server with Ubuntu server on it or something, you could definitely do the deb, I'm sure, and still get perfectly good usability out of it. But when you right click here on the Docker thing or open a new tab or just click it, it'll bring you here to their instructions. So we'll get back to these. Really the first thing you need is a server machine to use. So we're going to go in here and we're just going to create one real quick. And we'll just go through the normal process. I'm just going to use a normal Ubuntu server. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to use the $20 server this time because it does take a little bit of resources to run. I'll leave it on New York. I'm going to use password, and I'm going to give this the name of the URL that I intend to use. So once you do that, just double check and make sure you spelled everything correctly. So project.opensourceisawesome.com, that looks good. And then we're going to say create. So while we're waiting on this to get created, we will go over here to our DNS management. So depending on who you use, depends on how you do it, but I'm going to go here to hover. I'm going to create an A record, and I called it project. And we're going to set that to 5 minutes, and then we'll get the IP address here in a second. It should be finished pretty quick, and it is. So we're just going to copy this IP, and we're going to paste that in here, and save that, and make sure that it showed up, and we have project, and there's our IP address. So great. So here's DigitalOcean. We see it there. That's good. We're going to go back to this page, and I've got some notes that I'll bring up to use as well. So let me get that going. So here are our notes that we're going to actually use to get everything kind of set up and running. So the first thing we need to do is install Docker CE, and so I'm just going to open up this link right here. And there we go. And this is just on DigitalOcean. And it's some pretty basic steps to follow. So while we're waiting on everything to propagate, I'm also going to have to wait on an email that I'll get. And once I've got that, I'll come back and we'll keep moving. It does take a little time sometimes for DigitalOcean to send out the email with the password. I don't know why. I don't know if their system just is slow now. It used to be really quick, or what's going on, but sometimes it does take a little while. Okay, we've got our password, so we're just going to try to log in here, and we'll make sure that we can get in. Yes. And we'll paste in the password, and we'll repaste the password. I'm going to move my control down here real quick, and we want to put in alright, so we're in, we've reset our password to what we want. So we're going to do what we always do. And we want to do an update and upgrade real quick, so we'll let that run. So when you come to these screens, just hit tab so it goes to OK, hit enter, and you'll probably get it a second time. Sometimes you get it a third time, but usually just just once or twice. All right, we've done that, so now we're going to do reboot, and we're going to let the server reboot there. We'll give it a second, and then we'll log back in. It takes about 20-30 seconds usually for a Ubuntu server to reboot on DigitalOcean. All right, we're going to log back in. And there we go, good. So now we're going to go through the rest of our steps, and we need to install Docker. So we opened up our Docker instructions here. And it's pretty basic, so we've already done the update. So we're going to go install some things that we need here. So I just copy these commands, and then I come paste them into the terminal. We're going to let that run. Just tell it yes. If you just want it to move on, just put a -y at the end of that command we pasted in. Now we're going to go grab the keys that we need. And that's usually pretty quick. You should get an OK here. And then we're going to actually add the repository. Now when you do this, it'll do an update automatically, but I like to do another one right after it's done. So we'll do sudo apt update, just to let it run through that, and you see there it is right there in the instructions anyways. And then we're going to check the policy. And it looks like it's getting a pretty new version of Docker. That's what we want. And then we'll actually install Docker CE. And yes. All right, now we can do sudo systemctl status docker. And we can see that Docker's running. That's good, that's what we want. So we just hit Q to get out of that. And we'll clear this out. All right, we've got Docker installed. That's kind of a big step here. So now we're going to go and actually set up NginX. So we want to install NginX. So we can just do that with this command right here, sudo apt install NginX -y. So we'll go do that. And NginX installs pretty quickly, as you can see. Now we want to start the service. And then we want to check the service. So we can do sudo service nginx status, and it shows you that it's running and there are no errors, and if that's all correct, then you're doing good. Now, the next part is we need to go down here to OpenProject, and we're actually going to go get that Docker container. So the first thing we need to do is actually create a couple of static folders for it to store some data in. So that's this command here, which is sudo make directory -p /var/lib/openproject/pgdata, and then the same command again, except it's /var/lib/openproject/static. So we're going to do those two commands real quick. And then we're just going to backspace and we'll type it out. Make sure you spell static correctly. And that's it. Those two things are created. Now we're going to run this command. Now this is the command that we need in order to go get the actual container and pull it down and get it running. So we're going to go here and paste this in, and you want to just double check that everything looks good. And I'll put all this stuff in the description. But it's docker run-d, which means run this as a daemon in the background. And then set the port forwarding from 80, which is where the Docker container runs, to 8080 on my machine. So you'll have to go to 8080 to see that this is running. And then you can say -- name open project. So we're giving it a name inside of Docker so we can find it easily. An environment variable that's just set here, so leave this as it is. And then we're going to do a couple of volumes, which is those volumes we just created, and we're going to point them to the volumes that they have set up here in Docker. So pgdata points to pgdata, but static points to assets. And then down here it tells us what version we're going to get, which is community version 10. So we're going to run that, and you'll see it'll go out, it'll start pulling things down, extracting, getting everything ready. Okay, and then once you get this long string, this generally is kind of your indicator that the Docker container is running. Now, the Docker container is running, but you're not going to be able to get straight to OpenProject yet because it's a application that once the container is running, the web app gets built. So it's actually building in the background right now. You need to be patient. It could take up to 10-15 minutes for it to build and actually get running depending on your server. So we'll give it a few minutes here and we'll see how it's going. In the meantime, we can set up some other things, and I kind of want to show you what's going on there. So if we go here and we open up a new tab and we go to our URL, so it's trying to go to HTTPS because I've done this before. So I'm going to tell it HTTP. And you'll see we just get the generic NginX website, which is what we'd expect. Now if we modify this and we say :8080, which is where we expect our open project to be, you'll see that it's not going to give us anything yet because it's still building. So while we're waiting on it to build, we can go down here and do a couple of other things. We can add the Certbot repository, update, and install the Python Certbot while we're waiting. So let's just do that. So we're going to do this command right here. And we're just going to paste that in. So we'll clear this out and we'll paste that in. Now again, it does the update, but I like to just rerun the update command just to make sure everything gets up to date. And then we will go and we will actually install Certbot NginX, which is the one that we want. And we tell it yes, and we let it run and install. So Certbot basically goes out and gets the LetsEncrypt certificates for you and kind of runs that on an automated schedule to get new ones and keep you updated because the LetsEncrypt certificates run out after 90 days. So Certbot's really useful, but there's one that's specific to NginX because it'll write changes into your NginX configuration file. So speaking of the NginX configuration file, we need to create that. So out in your drive, there's a folder called /etc/etc/nginx/sites enabled, and then it'll have one called default. We want to remove that one, and then we're going to create our own. So let's go do that. So we'll clear. We're going to cd etc or /etc/nginx/sites enabled. Oops, I didn't spell NginX right. There we go. And if we do an ls, you'll see there's defaults. We're going to remove default. Now, if you're not root, you'll have to do sudo and then rm default. Now we're going to do nano project.opensourceisawesome.com. In this case, you're going to do whatever yours is. Don't call it this. Yours will be project.whatever your domain is, .com, .org, .net, okay? For me, this is the domain that we created, so just check your spelling. Once you're in here, you're just basically going to go grab what we've got here, and we're going to paste this in. Again, I'll put this in the description so that you can grab it. Now, it's not going to be formatted very pretty probably, but I'll put it there so you can grab it. We're just going to paste that in, and we're going to go fix a couple of things here. So project.opensourceisawesome.com is good. That's what we want it to watch for the server name. Let's just double check everything. So proxy set header, yes. Proxy set header, yes, we want that like that. And this just tells it looking at the local server on port 8080, which is where we expect our OpenProject stuff to be running. So we can go check that. So let's just save this, make sure everything's spelled right. So we're going to say this and exit. Let's go check real quick and see if our OpenProject site's up. We'll just refresh. And it's thinking, there it is, yeah. So it's running, but it's not running secured yet. So this is just running normal OpenProject. But that's why we made this change to NginX. So we're going to go back. So we've put in our config. Now we're going to check our config. So you do sudo nginx space -t. So you put that into your command line, and it should come back and say successful right here. If you get anything about failure, you need to look at it, and it should tell you kind of what line it failed on. And you may just have something misspelled. You may have something that it doesn't expect to be capitalized, or you may be missing you have an underscore instead of a hyphen, or a space instead of a hyphen, or anything. So kind of look in there and make sure it matches what I've got, but it should come back successful. Once you've got successful, you want to restart the NginX service, so just reload it. So you can do this command here, which is sudo service nginx reload. That's it. It doesn't do a lot. It's not spectacular. Ta-da! It's done. So if it doesn't give you any errors, then it reloaded. So now we should be able to go back to our URL, take out the 8080, and just go to HTTP. So you'll have to put that in if you've already tried HTTPS, because it'll keep trying to go there. But HTTP, and this should load up, and it does, which means our NginX server is working, because now we're not having to put that Docker port. So that's great. So we've got a lot of the steps done. We've got NginX doing a reverse proxy to our Docker container, which is what we want. That's great. We're almost done. So we tested our site. Now we're going to go get the LetsEncrypt certificate. Now, when you read this command, it says certbot --nginx. That tells Certbot we want it to go update our NginX script. -D means for this domain. Now this could be openproj. Whatever your domain is. In our case, it's going to be project.opensourceisawesome.com. In your case, it's going to be different, but pay attention to that. Now, if you have more than one domain pointing to this site, so if you have myopenproject.com and www.myopenproject.com, then you would add each one of those with a -D right before it. So I'll show you what that looks like. So we're going to paste this in. I'm going to get rid of this real quick. And we're just going to pretend it was openproj.org. I might also want to do -D www.openproj.org if I have this domain set up so that www goes there as well as without the www. So you can do multiple domains by just adding each one with a -D in front of it. In our case, our domain is project.opensourceisawesome.com. And we're just going to hit enter. And it's going to ask us for an email address, so put in your email. This is how they notify you if it's going to expire or if something's going on weird with your stuff. Hit A to agree to the terms of service. Hit Y if you're willing to share your email address and get information from the LetEncrypt people. I usually do N because they've already got my email address anyways. And then it's going to go through a challenge process to make sure that it can reach the site on port 80. So if you don't have that set up where it can reach port 80, it's going to fail. So make sure that that's all working first. Then it's going to come to this thing that says, do you want to do a no redirect, which means I can still go to the 8080 with a non-secure version. I don't want that. I want my users to automatically get forwarded to the secure HTTPS version. So in that case, you would use number 2. Hit enter. It's going to finish cleaning up. It should say congratulations, and you should have everything done. And we should now have our LetsEncrypt certificate. So if we actually go in and look at this file we just made, which had all of this stuff at the top, you can see this is the stuff we had, but now it's added all of this extra stuff for 443. That's the information that Certbot adds for you to help make everything work. So we're just going to do Q to get out of that. And we can go back to our browser, and now we can say we want HTTPS. And here we go. Now we've got HTTPS, we've got a valid certificate. You can check that by clicking on the little lock icon. First time you sign in, the default user is admin. So admin for the username, admin for the password. Tell your browser not to save it because you're about to change it. So type in admin again for the current password, and then type in something you can remember but is strong, or use your Bitwarden password manager. Hit save so that it updates the credentials for you, and then you can tell it, no, I don't remember that for now. English is my language. Now it's going to want to take you through a wizard. I suggest going through the steps and understanding all of the pieces. I'm not going to do that. I'm not an OpenProject expert, but you should do that if you're planning on using this tool if you don't know much about it. I'm going to skip it. I'm going to show you some basics real quick. It's really a nice system. If you're somebody who does project management for just any kind of project, this is definitely a great tool. But if you're even a product manager like me, where you're managing a product with a development team, this is a pretty nice tool. This could be a really good, useful tool if you don't want to have a tool that you're paying thousands of dollars for. So through my company, I get tools that they pay for. I have to use those things, but if I didn't, this would definitely be a tool that I would absolutely look at for using for those purposes. So you can go in and see some sample projects here. So if we go into this Scrum project, you kind of see what they've got started, and they've got this these capabilities and this dashboard that I think you can kind of go in and actually customize. And it's got timelines and things like that that help you figure out what's going on with your milestones. And you can go over here and just do, you know, work packages, so you can see what's going on. There's grids that you can expand and collapse and kind of see what's happening there. So really cool project, really useful. I'd say dig in, see what's going on with it. I'm sorry, I'm not an OpenProject expert, but that's how you get this thing set up and running with Docker and a reverse proxy with LetsEncrypt certificates. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, share, like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time.